Welcome back to ABC 7 Extra Sunday. I'm Mark Ross. Tonight, some tips on how to avoid summer illnesses with ABC 7's medical contributor, Dr. Okachika Alozi. All right, doctor, let's get a little gross here for a minute.
I like gross.
All right, families like to go to the pool or the splash pads, but you've got to be aware that there may be some illnesses caused by diarrhea. There's stuff floating in the pool or they're on the surface of the splash pad.
You know, that's kind of a modern urban myth, fallacy sort of thing. Here's the thing. Absolutely, if you go to the pool, you don't want your kids urinating, defecating in the pool, right? And little kids with diapers, that can be a problem. The reality, however, is that it's really hard to get a diarrheal disease from the pool because there's chlorine in it. And that chlorine actually kills the majority of the viruses that you can get. I will say this, however, one of the things that we see a lot in a spike in diarrheal diseases in the summertime is from food, right? People are so worried about the water, they forget that you make that potato salad, you leave it out a little bit too long, that can cause a diarrheal illness. You make that steak, maybe you left it out before you cooked it, you didn't cook it through, that can cause a diarrheal illness, right? So I think it's really important for people to remember, food prep is critical. Wash your hands, right? If you've used the restroom, I know this is gross, but you gotta wash those hands. So many times I fly a lot and I see people that are in the bathroom, they just walk right out, right? And again, food prep is important. And then make sure that you put things in the refrigerator. If it's supposed to be in the refrigerator, make sure it's in the refrigerator. The longer it stays out in this heat especially, it can go bad quickly.
And of course, we're hoping that the pool does have enough chlorine in it, but if it doesn't, there is a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say this, public pools are really good about their chlorine content, right? It's very rare that the health department sees a spike in diarrheal diseases at the public pools. What happens sometimes is that there's this new wave of saltwater pools or freshwater pools. They don't have the adequate chlorine content, and so you see these little spikes in family trends of people getting diarrheal illnesses at home.
Okay. Now, what about stomach viruses? Talk about that.
Yeah, so again, I think majority of these stomach viruses, it's hand-to-hand contact, right? What we call fecal-oral. The critical thing in all of that, if you really want to cut down diarrheal spike in a family or friends, or if you travel, you got to hand wash, right? And you may say, okay, well, I cut the meat, I did the shrimp, I did the potato salad, I'm going to go, but if you go station to station to station, you want to actually wash your hands between each part of the meal that you're prepping, because you don't know, especially with vegetables and potatoes and some of those sour creams and things, how well they've kept, right? But if you wash your hands between, that's the critical key.
Now, speaking of viruses, chicken pox, measles tend to show up more during the summertime, and it really, I mean, with the heats, it can just make it absolutely miserable for kids or for adults.
It can be miserable. And so, you know, it's one of those things, right? I'm an infectious disease physician, and I actually thought, urban myth, that it did spike in the summer. I actually went onto the CDC website and I checked. It's October to February, consistently over the last 20 years. But I think what happens is that kids are around other kids, both during school and during the summertime. But in the summertime, it's more pronounced. We think about it more, right? So some of it is just psychological. There is a little bit of a spike, but the primary time is those winter months. I think the key thing is if you have a kid out there that needs those vaccinations and immunizations, get them for them.
All right. I remember having chicken pox as a kid in the summertime, and
I've never had either one. I don't want either one at this age, especially. It might kill me. But yeah, get your kids vaccinated. I think that's the real take-home point.
All right, and let's not forget, speaking of skin rashes and whatnot, poison ivy.
Yep. So a lot of ways to protect that. I think if you're going hiking and camping, the easiest way is contact protection, right? Wear those long sleeves. I get it, it's hot, but there's a lot of different outfitters and clothing companies that make really light material because it's all contact. If you don't make contact, you're not going to get it. And then the other part of that is insect bites, mosquitoes, ticks, whatever the case may be. Insect repellent is huge. And long sleeves is also important. So again, just like with sun, I'm guessing we'll talk about sun at some point, anything that you can do to protect your extremities, that's the key, whether it's fabric or whether it's chemical.
And conjunctivitis, you mentioned that in our last segment a little bit. Can you expand on it?
Yeah, conjunctivitis is typically when your eyes get red. The conjunctiva is this lower part of your eyes. It can be caused by a lot of things. The most common things are viral, right? So we talked about the cold viruses, the enteroviruses, the rhinoviruses, but pollen can cause it, right? And we're sort of lucky, and again, it depends on if you're an allergy sufferer out there, you might not think you're lucky, but a lot more of the oaks and firs and things like that are in the Midwest and East Texas, right? We don't have as much. We have a lot of dust, right? So the dusts, the pollen. There's not a great way to protect your eyes, and if you need to wear glasses, wear glasses. But I think the thing is, if you do start to get it and something's in your eye, make sure you wash it out quickly and get it out of there. Visine is plus or minus. Again, the FDA has said recently that Visine's not great. It's more cosmetic for anything. So like sometimes when I come on TV and I have red eyes, I'll put 2 drops in. But clinically, it doesn't really change that much, unfortunately.
Okay, still ahead, Dr. Alozzi has more about summer illnesses and protecting yourself. Don't go away. You're watching ABC 7 Extra Sunday.